Dear friends, I am Dr. Gokula Krishna from Sri Rangam. In this video, I will be sharing the Ayurvedic perspective of the five sensory organs of the human body and how they work. The five sensory organs of our body have special receptors that allow us to hear, touch, see, taste and smell. In this way, they help to maintain equilibrium or balance. Information that is conveyed from these receptors to the central nervous system helps to maintain balance. This is known as Doshasamyam in Ayurveda. Each of the five senses has separate neural pathways, and modern science has explained this in great detail. In this video, we shall examine what the ancient Ayurvedic texts say about the structures and functions of the five sensory organs and the pathways involved in conveying their information to the central nervous system. The five sensory organs are known as Jnanendriyas. What do we mean by the word Jnanam in Ayurveda? Jnanam here refers to Pratyaksha Jnanam that is generated as a result of exposure to sound, touch, vision, taste and smell. The word Pratyaksha Jnanam means sensation. The conscious or unconscious awareness of changes that take place in the external environment around us and the internal environment within us. Let us be honest with our own selves. Is it possible that we have taken our Indriyas for granted? Have we ever thought about how amazing our Indriyas are? Just how we are able to hear a variety of sounds, see millions of different colors and objects of different shapes and sizes? Just how are we able to taste millions of different foodstuffs? In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna describes the sequential order in which the different pathways of Pratyaksha Jnanam are situated. The Lord says, Indriyani paranyahuhu, indriyebhyah param manaha, manasastu parabuddhihi, yo buddhev paratastu saha. The Indriyas or senses are superior to dull matter. The mind is superior to them. Buddhi is superior to the mind, and he, the Jivatma, is superior to the Buddhi. This has been explained in great detail in Charaka Samhita, one of the most important classical Ayurvedic texts. In the conversation that ensued between Sage Atreya Punarvasu and his disciples headed by Sage Agnivesha, the Acharya mentions five pentads known as Panchapanchakam. The levels and components of sensation have been analyzed here. Says Agnivesha, Iha khalu panchendriyani, panchendriyadravyani, panchendriyadhisthanani, panchendriyarthaha, panchendriya buddhayaha, ityuktam indriyadhikare. This is from Shlokasthanam of Charaka Samhita, chapter 8, Indriyopakramaniyam chapter, Gadyam 3. Let us examine each of the Panchapanchakam in the sequential order. So here I will not be explaining in the order in which they have been given in the Gadyam here. The first Panchakam which we can take is the Dravyas. Panchendriya Dravyani Khamvayur Jyotirapo Bhuriti. The five Indriya Dravyas are the five mahabhutas that go on to form the whole of this universe in innumerable permutations and combinations. Akasha Mahabhuta forms the many different sounds that we hear. Vayu Mahabhuta forms the many different substances that we touch and feel through the skin. Agni Mahabhuta forms the many different objects that we see. Jala Mahabhuta forms the many different chemicals in the foodstuffs that we taste. Prithvi Mahabhuta forms the many different chemicals in the external air that we smell. The next pentad is the five arthas. Panchendriyarthaha Shabdas Parasha Ruparasa Gandhaha. These are the sensory modalities. The sound modality, modalities of touch, temperature and pressure, light modality, taste modality and smell modality. Sensory modality is something that is perceived after a stimulus. The next pentad is the indriyadhisthanams. Panchendriyadhisthanani Akshini, Karnau, Nasike, Jihva, Tvakcheti. The meaning is clear in the Gadyam here. Indriyadhisthanam is the aggregate of all anatomical structures within which an indriyam is situated. This could be explained as Jadam Bahyam Sthulam Vyapyam Karyam Pravartyam Cha Sarvamapyavayavajatam. Karnendriyadhisthanam is formed by structures like the Karnapali, that is, the auricle or pinna, which is the visible part of the external ear that is formed by an elastic cartilage and covered by skin. This is known as Karnapali in Sanskritam. And then the Karnavivaram or the ear canal, the Shankhasthi or the temporal bone, Karnantargata Majja, that is the fluid known as perilymph that is contained within the bony part of the inner ear, and then the Raktavahi Siras within the ear, that is the arteries and vein. Tvagindriyadhisthanam is formed by structures like the Keshas, that is hairs on the scalp, the Lomas, hairs on the rest of the skin surface, the Svedavahi Srotases, that is the glands that release sweat or perspiration, and the 7 layers of skin as described by Sushruta, or the 6 layers of skin as described by Charaka. Chakshurindriyadhisthanam is formed by structures like the Vartma Mandalam, that is the eyelids, Sandhi Mandalam, or the junctions between the eye, the Shukla Mandalam or the sclera, Krishna Mandalam, the cornea, Drishti Mandalam, the aperture known as pupil, Mamsapeshis within the eye, that is the intrinsic and extrinsic eye muscles, Raktavahi Siras situated within the eye, that is the arteries and veins that supply the eye. Jihvendriyadhisthanam is formed by the Mamsapeshis within the tongue, that is the muscles of the tongue, and the Raktavahi Siras, that is the arteries and veins of the tongue. Arthagrahanam, or receiving the sensory input, is not performed by these gross anatomical structures. Some of them can only conduct the sensory impulses to higher centers. Therefore, there is no indriyatvam for these anatomical structures, the indriyadhisthanams. The next pentad is the 5 indriyas. Tatra chakshuhu, shrotram, ghranam, rasanam, sparshanam iti panchendriyani. Indriyas are anatomical structures that lie deep within the indriyadhisthanams and are more subtle than them. Arthagrahanam, or receiving the sensory input, is the function of these structures. It is through proper arthagrahanam that the indriyas maintain doshasamyam or homeostasis among the five vatas that are there in the body. The five vatas are prana, udana, vyana, samana and apana. Among the five vatas, it is pranavata that is situated within the indriyas. It is pranavata that does the functions of receiving and converting shabda or sound waves, sparsha that is tactile sensations, rupa that is visual signals, rasa the chemical sense of taste, and gandha the chemical sense of smell into nerve impulses. By converting them into nerve impulses, pranavata sends them to the manas. Which anatomical structures constitute each of the five indriyas? Vagbhatacharya says in his Sharirasthanam, Adhastat karnayor nimne vidhure shrutiharini. The two vidhuras. These are two anatomical structures in each ear that could be considered as karnendriyam. He gives this description in the chapter known as Marmashariram. Marmas are vital anatomical structures within the body, and the two vidhuras are considered as Nayu marmas that conduct vata, and they could be correlated with the acoustic nerves in each ear. In the Sharirasthanam of Sushrita Samhita, the 9th chapter describes the divisions of Dhamanis or body channels. This chapter is known as Dhamani Vyakaranam. Here, the Acharya says that the Hridayam gives rise to 24 Dhamanis. 10 Dhamanis branch from it above, 10 below, and 2 on either sides of the Hridayam horizontally. The Dhamanis that branch superiorly or above are called Urdhvagamini Dhamanis. The Dhamanis that branch inferiorly or below are called Adhogamini Dhamanis, and the Dhamanis that branch on either sides of the body horizontally are called Tiryagamini Dhamanis. The branches of the two pairs of the Tiryagamini Dhamanis give rise to innumerable shakhas and prashakhas. As they reach the skin surface, the most distal prashakhas become microscopic structures. It is these anatomical structures, the 4 Tiryagamini Dhamanis, along with all their shakhas and prashakhas, that could be considered as Parshanendriyam. The different kinds of tactile sensations like touch, temperature, pressure, vibration, itch and tickle are perceived by these structures that constitute the Sparshanendriyam. The third Indriyam is Chakshus. In the Sutrasthanam, Vagbhatacharya says, Rupalochana smritam driksthamalochakam. Just like how we have got 5 kinds of vata in the body, we also have 5 types of pittam and 5 types of kapha. So these 3 entities, vata, pitta and kapha, are the basic functional entities of the body. Every physiological function that takes place in the body is controlled by the 3 doshas vata, pitta, kapha. Just like how we have 5 kinds of vata within the body, we also have 5 kinds of pitta, pachaka pittam, Sadhaka Pittam, Ranjaka Pittam, Alochaka Pittam and Bhrajaka Pittam. So these are the 5 kinds of Pitta we have got in our body. Among these, the kind of Pittam that is situated within the eye is known as Alochakam Pittam. It is this Pittam and Marmas known as Apangas and Avartas that constitute the Chakshurindriyam. The 4th Indriyam is Rasanam. Rasabodhanat bodhako rasanasthayi, says Vagbhatacharya in the Sutrasthanam. On the doshic level, it is bodhaka kapha that is responsible for the sense of taste. The anatomical structures that perform this function are the 2 siras or body channels known as manyas. In the Sharirasthanam, in Marmashariram, Vagbhatacharya says, Kanthanadim ubhayataha siraha hanusamashritaha chatasrastasu nile dve manye dve marmani smrite svarapranasho vaikrityam rasajnanam cha tadvyadhe. Kanthanadim ubhayataha, on either sides of the Kanthanadi, that is the esophagus, siraha hanusamashritaha, there are 4 siras. So the words siras and dhamanis could be used synonymously, because in many places in the Ayurvedic literature, we find them being used synonymously. I told you earlier that there are 24 dhamanis within the body. 10 dhamanis branch superiorly, and each of these 10 dhamanis gives rise to 3 shakha each. And among those shakhas, there are 4 siras or dhamanis. And these 2 pairs of siras are being described here in this shloka by the Acharya here. He says, Chatasrastasu nile dve, manye dve marmani smrite. Among these 4 siras, 2 of them are known as Nila and 2 of them are known as Manya. When there is any trauma to these siras, what happens is Svarapranashaha. When there is any injury to Nila sira, it affects voice production adversely. When there is any injury to Manya sira, Rasajnanam cha tadvyadhe, the perception of taste becomes impossible. These 2 are the anatomical structures, the Manya siras. The Manya siras, along with Bodhaka kapha, that could be considered as Rasanendriyam. Bodhaka kapha is situated on the elevations of the tongue surface. Among the 5 types of kapha in the body, it is this kapha that is situated in the tongue and acts as a receptor for the sensations of taste. It could be roughly correlated with the gustatory receptors situated within the taste buds. The 2 Manyasira marmans that conduct vata could be roughly correlated with the branches of nerves like the glossopharyngeal nerve, the facial nerve and the vagus nerve that supply the tongue. And the 5th Indriyam is Granendriyam. Says Vagbhatacharya in Marmashariram Adhyayam, Phanavubhayato Grana Margam Shrotrapathanugau Antargalasthitau Vedhat Gandhavijnana Harinau. These 2 are the anatomical structures in each nostril that could be considered as Granendriyam. These are known as Phanamarmas. The 2 Phanas are Siramarmans that conduct vata. They could be correlated with the olfactory receptors on the olfactory nerves. So, this is the anatomical basis of each of the 5 Indriyas. It is these structures that are directly subject to the Niyantranam of the manas. Agnivesha says that Atindriyam punarmanaha, the mind transcends the indriyas. It is subtler than them. It receives sensory input from the indriyas and sends them to the 5 types of buddhis. Now, with this the 4th pentad is over. Let us move on to the 5th pentad, the 5 indriya buddhis. Panchendriya buddhayaha chakshur buddhyadikaha taf punah indriyartha sattvatma sannikarshajaha kshanikaha nishayatmikascha ityatat panchapanchakam. The 5 types of buddhi are the Shrotra buddhi, Tvak buddhi, Chakshur buddhi, Rasana buddhi and Ghrana buddhi. They are formed when the Indriyas, the Indriyarthas, the mind and the Atma come into contact. They are Kshanika or momentary and determinative in nature. When we go through all of our ancient Vedic literatures, we will find that Hridayam has been described as the seat of Manas, Buddhi and Atman. Hridayam is described as Chetanadhishtanam in Ayurveda, Yoga and Vedanta. On the other hand, modern science says that brain is the seat of consciousness. It is brain that controls thoughts, memory, emotion, motor skills and every process that regulates our body. How are we to believe that Hridayam is Chetanadhishtanam as explained by all of our Shastras? Brain is the organ that contributes to homeostasis by receiving sensory input. It is brain that integrates new and stored information. It is brain that makes decisions. And it is brain that causes motor activities. Parts of the brain like the auditory cortex, the somatosensory cortex, the visual cortex, the gustatory cortex and olfactory cortex are responsible for processing auditory information, tactile information, visual information, taste information and smell information. The central neural physiology of the 5 senses takes place within the different areas of the brain. Therefore, Manas and Buddhi should be situated in the brain and not in the heart. So this is a samshaya that could arise in our hearts, and here is the samadhanam for it from our own literature. Bhaila Maharishi says in his treatise Bhaila Samhita that Shirastalvantaragatam Sarvendriya Parammanah. This verse is from Bhaila Samhita, section 6 Chikitsasthanam, chapter 8 Unmada Chikitsitam, verse 2. It means Manas is located in between the Shiras or cranium and Talu or palate. These words of Bhaila Maharishi are very important. Bhaila Maharishi was one of the 6 disciples of Agnivesha Maharishi. Charaka Samhita says, Athamaitri paraf punyam Ayurvedam punarvasuhu Shishyebhyo dattavan shadbhyaha sarvabhutanukampaya. Out of compassion for all living entities, sage Atreya Punarvasu imparted the knowledge of Ayurveda to 6 disciples, and those disciples were Agniveshascha Bhailascha Jatukarnav Parasharah Haritah Ksharapaanischa. Agnivesha, Bhaila, Jatukarna, Parashara, Harita and Ksharapani. These were the 6 disciples of Atreya Punarvasu Maharishi and Jagruhustan Muner Vachaha. They received the knowledge that was transmitted by Agnivesha Maharishi. So this description is from the treatise of Bhaila Maharishi. So these are the anatomic considerations of Buddhi. And what are the three doshas that keep the functions of Buddhi going? If we look at our classical Ayurvedic texts, we will find that Vayuh Pranotramurdhagaha Buddhi Hridayendriya Chittadhrika. So these are the descriptions of Pranavata. Vayuh Pranotramurdhagaha means Pranavayu is situated in the Murdha, the cranium. And Buddhi Hridayendriya Chittadhrika. Pranavata controls the Buddhi, the Hridayam or Manas, the Indriyas. And then, while describing Pitta, the Acharya says, Vagbhatacharya says, Buddhi medha bhimanadhyaihi abhipretartha sadhanat sadhakam hridgatam pittam. Pittam that is situated in the Hridayam is sadhakam pittam. It is this pittam that controls the Buddhi. And while explaining Kapha, he says, Shirassamsthoksha tarpanat tarpakaha. Shirassamsthaha, that which is situated within the Shiras. It is known as tarpaka because it does the function of tarpanam of the Indriyas. The word tarpanam means nourishment. From these descriptions, this is what we understand. Pranavayu, Sadhaka Pittam and Tarpaka Kapha are the three doshas that control the functions of Buddhi. Conversion of sound waves, touch, light energy and chemical impulses of taste and smell into nerve impulses, and the relay of these five signals is the function of Pranavayu situated in the Mastishkam or the brain. Discrimination of sound patterns and sound frequency and detection of sound direction, analysis of three-dimensional position, analysis of gross form and motor objects, and analysis of visual detail and color, taste adaptation and taste preference, and analysis of smell. These are the functions of Sadhaka Pittam situated in the Mastishkam or brain. The structural basis of the auditory nerve, the optic nerve, the glossopharyngeal nerve, and the olfactory nerve, the different cortices of the brain and their nourishment is the function of Tarpaka Kapha situated in the Mastishkam or brain. Through the properties or gunas of Chalatvam and Sukshmatvam, Pranavayu contributes to the normal functioning of the brain. Through the property or guna of Tikshnatvam, Sadhaka Pittam contributes to the normal functioning of the brain. Through the property or guna of Snigdhatvam, Tarpaka Kapha contributes to the normal functioning of the brain. I conclude this video by quoting the words of Sushrita Maharishi. Visargodana vikshepaihi somasurgyanila yatha dharayanti jagaddeham kaphapitanilas tatha. Just as the sun, the moon and the wind sustain the universe, the three doshas, Vata, Pitta and Kapha, sustain the physiological activities of this physical body. With this I conclude.